Hello.
Hi, Steve. Hope you're alright.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi
Okay, there we
there.
go. Perfect. Hiya. You alright?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just trying to get this assignment sorted.
Okay.
Um, okay, let me just make sure I'm recording properly. Yeah, that's looking good. Yeah, so I've got a few, basic questions. They're all fairly simple questions. Just say whatever you feel about them, really.
Okay.
It's more about, the personal side of you, so what drove you to start up your own businesses and things like that.
Okay.
So, firstly, just, what was your childhood like? How did you live? Was there anything in your childhood that you think led you want to work for yourself rather than working for somebody else?
Well, look, I think everyone to some extent, first and foremost, is influenced by their parents. So, my father was an entrepreneur. He owned his own business doing specialty manufacturing. I remember on vacations and summers going into the to his manufacturing plant and working on the assembly line and interacting in his his private business, and that left an impression on me for sure. I think second, I was always kind of as a kid, I was a self-starter. I was independent, mostly because of the family dynamic. I was a middle child, and there were things, that were going on in the family that required me to be independent. So, I would be involved in a lot of activities. I would be involved in athletics. So, just from an early age, pursuing my interests and taking them to wherever they would lead me, and feeling like I could accomplish anything I set my mind to. And that kind of started, at a very young age.
So, going, so kind of basing off that, was there any particular point that you can remember that made you think I want to work for myself rather than under anyone in particular, or was it just an overall kind of
Look, I
impression you
think
got?
it's a progression. So, from being a self-starter in high school, I then went to one of the top universities in America, an Ivy League school, and so now you're with kind of the top of the heap. The really high caliber people, and so you have to kind of up your game. I continue to be active, and about that time, I decided to go into politics. That was my interest, was studying government and being active in political campaigns and even running for office. So, as a student at college, I ran for a seat in the state legislature, which I succeeded in receiving, and at a very young age, when I was only 19. So, at that time, I was on the path to have a career in politics. And after many years of working in politics, both as an elected official and someone working on presidential campaigns around America, I just realized that that wasn't the way I wanted to contribute to society. I knew I wanted to make an impact, but I felt I could take the skills of being good at politics and understanding strategy around issues and campaigns and apply that instead to business ideas. And so, about that time in my early 20s, I decided to go to law school, and after being a lawyer for a while, and reaching what I wanted to do with the law, most of what I did with the law was develop an expertise in gambling law and originate most of my own clients. So I was really a self-contained business within the law firm. I never really had to answer to anyone. I always controlled my own destiny. And so the natural progression was to go from that to being in the casino business. And so, about 20 years ago, I left the profession of being a lawyer and went into the entrepreneurial business of owning and operating casinos, which eventually led to investing in dozens and dozens and dozens of technology-oriented companies in and around the gambling space. And that's where I sit today in my early 50s, having run dozens of businesses, having invested in dozens of businesses, having exited and raised capital for dozens of businesses. I just focus on innovation, what the future is. And, because of the skill set, anything I put my mind to that has merit, I can usually accomplish. And that's where I am in my life at this point.
Perfect. So, from your background in politics and then your family side of things as well, do you think there are any particular values you took from all of that, or ideologies you took from that you can apply to your entrepreneurship?
Yes, there's a few. Number one, everything begins and ends with hard work. The people who excel, whether it's in a profession or in entrepreneurialism or teaching or athletics, are people who work hard. And usually it's easier to work hard if you enjoy what you do. So those two are related. Enjoy what you do and work hard at it. Number three would be open-minded and be a good listener. They go hand in hand. So if you're open-minded and you're willing to listen instead of always advocating or talking, you can learn a lot. And most of what you learn doesn't occur in the university. It occurs in real life. And most of that can only occur if your attitude is open-minded, if you are willing to listen, and if you have flexibility, which is the ability to change your mind. That's one definition of flexibility. The other is the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. If you can understand someone else's perspective, it will make you a better businessman. So those, I would say, are the qualities.
Okay. So I want to get your view on risk exactly. So risk is a big part of being an entrepreneur. Going into your own business, there's a lot of risk involved. So how do you feel about risk? What sort of risks are you willing to take, and where do you step away from it?
So from a risk standpoint, obviously there is a correlation between risk and reward. The bigger the risks that you take, the higher the reward. This is proportional. Obviously, the more experience you have over time taking risk, the better you are at calculating what risk you should take. So experience informs the decision on what risk you're willing to take. And I think you get better at it over time. Part of it is you learn by your mistakes, and if you learn from your mistakes, then you'll make fewer of them, and the chances that your risk will pay off are greater. So I would describe it as a process. I would say I would say people are born either with the ability to take risk or not. I don't think this is
you're riskier than the general person.
Yes, I think you're just born with a nature. It comes from being confident. It comes from working hard. It comes from succeeding over time. So if you develop these attributes, if you're a leader versus, let's say, being a follower, these are attributes that feed into your capacity to take on risk. I would say it's something that's innate, and it isn't something that you can go read a book on.
So that kind of leads me into my next question of, what do you think that you have in you that makes you more successful than other people business-wise? So risk is obviously one of them. You can take on that extra risk. But what other things about yourself do you think makes you successful?
I would say the number one attribute, besides the ones that I've mentioned, I've mentioned hard work.
Yeah.
I've mentioned kind of empathy, or the ability to be in someone else's shoes. I've mentioned being able to be a good listener. I've mentioned learning from your mistakes. But the number one the number one attribute, I think, for being a good entrepreneur is having a positive attitude and outlook. My feeling is if you approach every day with a good energy and a positive outlook, then it creates positive outcomes. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you approach the day with a negative or sour outlook, then the likelihood that everything you touch is negative and sour increases. So for me, everything begins and ends with a positive outlook and good positive energy towards the things that I'm pursuing.
So following on from that one again, so you're saying about positive attitude getting up in the morning. What drives you to get up in the morning? What drives you to start your day off positively? What gets you going?
For me, what I learned over time, some people, some of the gurus, some of the people who teach about entrepreneurism will tell you that the formula for success is to focus on a few things that you do well. And I have always marched to a different drum beat. For me, focusing on a few things would not hold my interest, would not give me that energy. So for me, what drives me is that every day is different. I would say I'm more of a generalist. I have more of a capacity to learn new topics. I have a capacity to be somewhat of a chameleon. I could be going in one direction and I'm willing to change on a dime and go in another direction if that's where it's taking me. So I would say, from my perspective, what gives me the energy every day is that no 2 days are the same. Oftentimes, I may not know what I'm doing during the day until I wake up in the morning. So the fact that I do not have very many established routines is what gives me the energy every day to get up and do the things I do.
Every day's a mystery.
It is.
So, okay, so sometimes businesses don't go how you plan them to go. Sometimes issues occur. So, what drives you when things get tough in them? How do you go about that?
So the biggest lesson I would give in this area is this. And I said this to a friend of mine who he spent 15 years trying to produce a Broadway show in New York. And in the end, the show flopped in one day, in the first performance. And I said, don't be upset that it flopped, but be upset that it took you 15 years to figure that it was going to be a flop. And so what I tell people is it's okay to fail, but try to fail more quickly. And if you fail, you're not going to be judged by your failure. You're going to be judged by whether you picked yourself up by the bootstrap and, picked up the next pursuit. So it's not about the failure. It's about how you respond to it. And I would say life is short. So if you're going to fail, do it quickly.
Perfect. So you've been at this for a long time now. Is this something you can see yourself doing for the rest of your life? Will you stop or will you keep going? Are you in love with what you do enough to keep going?
Yeah, I would say at this point it's all that I know, because I've been working at a pace that I work. I'm as energized or energetic today as I was when I was 17. I have the advantage of building great teams around me. So my capacity to do things is so much more. My resources is so much more. So as long as I can continue to learn, as long as I can continue to stay ahead of the curve and be future oriented, then there's no reason why I can't continue to do this for many more productive years. Most people think about, what they do towards retirement. It isn't even a thought for me. I really don't think much beyond what I'm doing in the moment. I really don't. I'm just not a guy who dreams about the future, who dreams about, being able to recreate. I incorporate all of those things into my daily work. I do take joy in world travel. I have opened up opportunities in other markets. so I incorporate those desires in my everyday work. And so I don't expect to change anything I'm doing for the foreseeable future.
So you're saying about how you enjoy your world travel and everything. Is there an aspect of working for yourself and being an entrepreneur that you enjoy over everything else? What is your favourite part of working for yourself?
Look, I mean, everyone's different. Obviously, at some point in my life, I understood about myself that I don't respond well to people telling me what to do. Now, the issue there is not so much. There are times when everyone has to be willing to, take direction. If I'm working with a company, they're setting the direction. To some extent, they're telling me what they want to have done. And obviously, because of my experience, it's a collaborative process. But I generally like the idea of being my own person. I like the obviously sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you were cutting out. Where were we when we finished there?
You were saying what I like most
Yeah,
about
yeah.
just working for myself, and it really just was the being in touch with myself at a certain point in my life and knowing that I wanted to call the shots as opposed to work under someone else's direction. And this is really just a fundamental aspect about myself. It's not that I believe in being team player, and I believe in earning loyalty and doing the things to earn loyalty and to give loyalty. I believe in the things that make organizations strong. I've led 4,000 or 5,000 person organizations, so I don't have a problem with institutions and organizations. But just for me personally, I feel happier when I'm doing my own thing.
Okay. I think that's kind of all my key questions, really. So unless you've got anything to add that you think something
tell me what
personal about you.
What are you doing this for? You have a class in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, the basic idea is we're just trying to get to the bottom of what drives somebody to become an entrepreneur.
1 second. You have a class in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so it's a class about what drives a person to become an entrepreneur in the first place. What about their past and what makes them want to work for themselves, really.
Can you do me a favor? If it's not too much trouble, what I want to do with this content, if you'll put it in the form of a question and answer, just a transcription, and put it in the form of a link, I'm gonna publish it.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
If you could do that for me, that would be a nice favor back.
In terms of that, would it be okay if it was published after I've submitted the document, just as otherwise it might come up as plagiarism or something if you post it online somewhere?
No. I want you to post it as an interview that you're conducting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that. Okay.
I want you to do it. You can put an introductory note that you worked as an intern for me and you're taking a class in entrepreneurship, and you conducted this interview.
Yeah, okay. I can do that. That's perfectly fine. Do you have anything to add on the end of that then, or?
No, I mean, I think you're asking. The fact that you're asking the questions that you're asking tells me that you're getting what you need to out of this class.
Yeah.
So I think you're the questions are almost more instructive than the answers, in my view.
Okay. Well, thank you.
So I think in that sense, you're spot on. Okay.
Okay then. Well, thank you very much, Steve. I hope all
Okay.
is going well.
By the way, I'll be in London again and Manchester for a good part of the month of February next year. Just FYI. Okay.
Well, I'm not too far from Manchester, so maybe I'll pop over. I'm about an hour and a half on the train.
Okay. Well, let's stay in touch. Okay.
Okay. I'll speak to you soon, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.